I was asked to give a BBC today about entering Varsa and the mind of Varsa. So this might be mostly for the people in this room. I'm not sure. We'll see how much applies to other people. It's mostly working with your mind, so I think other people can use this. But this is a lot to do with one of the monastic rites that we do every year. And we're going to be starting this in the next few days. So for the history about the Varsa, which is the Rains Retreat, you can look in other books. There's things online. Venerable Children's taught about it. Today, we're mostly going to talk about what to cultivate in your mind. And the rite itself, I realized last year really strongly how much it tells you what to do. And so a lot of this is actually from the rite itself. And the book that we're using, a lot of this is from. And it mentions that in the Sravasti Vinaya, it says, according to the Buddha, all 5 groups of monastics should spend the rainy season in retreat. So the purpose is actually retreat. And it's these 5 groups of people, which is the fully ordained monastics, the bhikshus and bhikshunis, the shikshamanas, those who are doing the 2-year training, and the novice monastics, which is the shamanaries and the shramaneras, the nuns and the monks who are novices. So so that's who the 5 groups are, but in retreat, what does that, what kind of retreat? Because if you go to different places, it's not like we happen to do this at the same time we do our winter retreat, which is a meditation retreat, 5 sessions a day, 6 sessions a day. The Rains Retreat isn't necessarily like that when you go to different places. Ours just happens to coincide. So what we're actually doing and what you're supposed to focus on during that time is laid out in the ceremony. And for what retreat means, I turned to Geshe Khyentse Jampa Tekchok. And he talks about this mostly as a time of greater focus, a time of study and meditation. And so this is like, Varsa lasts for 90 days. And so we'll have our 3-month of retreat that we do every winter, a little broken up this year. But we'll do the 90 days of Varsa straight through. And so during this time, it's really a time to direct your energy, your mental energy, as much as possible to listening, thinking, and meditating, the way that we learn and come to embody the teachings of the Buddha. And it's a time to strive to create virtue by doing that, by listening, hearing, meditating, and then to develop knowledge by doing the same. Geshe Tekchok said, contemplate deeply upon impermanence in relation to your Dharma practice. There are so many conditions for dying and so few for living. I have not died. I have time to practice the Dharma. So we want to think in this way. We really, the mind state that we want for this 3-month is a time of kind of renewed energy, a time of focus on our Dharma practice. And then if you think about this, if you just have the proper motivation, if you can work on that, then living in the precepts and doing this type of Varsa retreat will create a lot of merit. In the ceremony, it talks about where to dwell. And I'm not going to go through all the details of the ceremony, but some of the ones that relate to what our mind needs to be like. Where to dwell is one of those. Many of the things they talk about with that are, one is you stay within the monastic territory. This helps us to unclutter our mind and simplify our life. Of course, there's ways to, get permission to be outside of the territory overnight if you need to, but in general, think of it as like you're kind of simplifying things, not going places so much, able to focus more. It also talks about a place that is free of 5 faults. And 4 of those faults, in my mind, seem to describe a place where it's not really allowing you to dwell peacefully. There's mosquitoes, or it's unsafe, or you don't have the requisites, whatever. So we really do want to try to dwell peacefully within our own mind and with each other. And then it also says having no one to rely on is a fault. And so the person that we're supposed to rely on has these 5 virtuous qualities. And those qualities, I think, tell us what a little bit about what we're supposed to be doing. So they can cause you to hear what you have not yet heard, refine what you've already heard, be able to settle doubts, have thorough understanding of the Dharma and secular topics, and be able to eliminate your wrong views and help you to gain right views. So this really leads us into some of the purpose is listening, contemplating, and meditating. And that first one, cause you to hear what you've not yet heard, to me, it's asking us to have a mind of what they teach in the Lamrim, what a student's characteristics are. And those are things like having an open and receptive mind and kind of using our intelligence in that way. And the other ones really focus on, I think, helping us to think about using this time to increase our understanding of the Dharma and our practice of it. So if there was one word that all of this points to, it's for what Varsa is about in terms of your mind, everything is pointing towards harmony. Every single part of it, not to have to deal with requisites or this or that and all that. And there's many times in the ceremony where this is brought up. For instance, when we take reliance on a Vinaya master, we are going to state today in this ceremony, the Bhikshuni Sangha at Sravasti Abbey is in harmony. And then, so we will, in our Abbey, eventually we'll have a Bhikshu Sangha and a Bhikshuni Sangha, and we will stay together as one community. Sangha is one word that has two divisions. Or it has three, there's a lot of ways to divide things, but it's one word, and we are one community. So that's one thing to focus on. And what Khyentse Jampa Tekcho said about this, the way he put it, he said, all the minds of the Sangha come together in harmony. They're following the Buddha's monastic code, confessing, and not causing problems to each other. So this is the main thing that everything's pointing to is to having harmony in our community and cultivating that so that we can, as one community, enjoy this time and focus on our practice. When we do the stick ceremony, most people don't maybe know this unless they've studied the book, but the people who get the sticks ready do a little ritual. And during that, we use the sticks to count how many people are doing it, but that's not really the main purpose of the sticks. It does give you a number, but when you read the rite, there's so much else that this is about. And their preparation of the sticks helps us to see this. They dip the sticks in fragrant boiling water and they recite this 4-line verse. The first two are, 4 groups of noble beings are gathered. The assembly of ordinary beings is in harmony. Who are the ordinary beings? That's us. And we are to be in harmony. And then the next 2 lines are, fragrant water purifies the sticks. Varsa purifies our 3 doors. Varsa purifies our body, speech, and mind. And so Varsa is a time of purification, and even the ceremony itself contains purification practices. So if you can open yourself to the ceremony can change your mind. It's all really dependent on the motivation that you take in and the sincerity that you have. Like we say when we do the incense chant, where the sincere mind abound, the Buddhas all appear. It's this type of mind that we cultivate that is what makes these rites more than just words on a piece of paper. In the book, they're just words, but when you live them, it's the Buddha's wisdom and compassion just flowing. And later in the ceremony, the abbess at one point says, with utmost sincerity, visualize and bow to the Buddha and ask the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to protect us with compassion. And she goes on and says, while we practice diligently. So right there, utmost sincerity, this is what we want to bring in. And what are we going to do with this time? Practice diligently. And again, when we make the request to Venerable Master Wei Min today, he will reply, when we make a request for reliance, he will reply, I will give you reliance. Be vigilant. Do not let your mind be uncontrolled. Later in the ceremony, we say that with the abbess. She says, do not let your mind be uncontrolled. And what do we say? We say, I will be mindful in my practice. And I always like to add, we don't say, I'll do everything right. We don't say, I will keep my mind under control. We say, I will be mindful in my practice, because we're ordinary beings. Our mind isn't always under control, but we try to make the conditions, everything, we really work harder to give us a chance to get beyond these uncontrolled minds. So what is our job? Our job is to be mindful in my practice, and that's what we're committing to. We're not saying my mind won't be uncontrolled all the time, but that's what we're shooting for. And so, because of this, there are guidelines and restrictions, they say, for entering Varsa. When you take the stick, you're kind of agreeing to how we're setting up the environment and how we're doing things. And one of those, the way it starts off like this is the abbess will say, if a virtuous monastic delights in spending Varsa at this place, so that tells you right away, we want to be here, we're delighting in doing this. Then you're going to follow some guidelines, and then you can do Varsa. One of those guidelines has a lot to do with the harmony, and is a big factor in harmony. As we all know, in Varsa, we don't give a lot of feedback to each other. This is one of the restrictions, one of the guidelines. So really, we shouldn't be criticizing each other. And actually, in our Varsa book, it says, it lists particular topics not to give feedback on at this time. That's handled after Varsa. Someone who contradicts the right view, the precepts, right behavior, or right livelihood. So in general, we don't give feedback during Varsa. And this is because, essentially, it annoys people. It's easy for people to get annoyed, and then it causes people not able to live peacefully. Because a lot of times, our tone of voice might not be perfect, and things just don't always go well. So Venerable Chodron says, during Varsa, we don't remind people not to go down a slippery slope. I think that's her way of, she likes to intervene before we get too far down the slope, right? But we don't do that at this time, for the most part. She says, people are prickly and our tone of voice isn't good, which makes things not harmonious. So unless there's something more serious to address, and there are even minor things that may have to get sorted out, in general, we avoid feedback, no arguing, anything like that. We really, instead, all the kind of descriptives that they have in the ceremony are pointing towards us being diligent in our practice. This is the most important thing for these next 90 days, and maintaining harmony in the community. And so we can rejoice that we have this opportunity, because this has been done for over 2,500 years, and we're able to follow people who have had really good ethical conduct and kind of cultivate for ourselves and follow the path as they did. So this is a great opportunity for us. And these are some of the qualities that are stated in the ritual that we all have the capacity to enhance. So let's do that as we move forward.